The doors opened up to a brightly lit hallway, with double doors at the other end. Jared pulled Rick along with us, and we stopped at the doors. "Is there anyone else helping you in here?" I asked. "I don't need anyone else to help me," he said. "I've got everything I need." Katie grabbed the handle and pulled the door open. With my gun pointed out in front of me, I stepped into a big, open room. There were multiple cots set up, most of them occupied by people from our group. "Did you work at a hospital before all this, or just ransack one after this happened?" Katie asked. "I'm just very resourceful and learned a lot before I retired," he said. "You need me if you want to survive." "It doesn't look like you're helping us to survive," I said, pointing to the people on the cots. "You can't help everyone. There have to be some sacrifices for others to survive," he said. I looked around the room at the cots. Arvin and his family were there, and so was Brian. But I didn't see Trish. "What did you do with Trish?" I asked. Rick pointed to a door at the other side of the room. "She went through there," he said. I walked across the room and opened the door to a well-organized storage room. There were shelves with labels, upon which stood medicine bottles, syringes, IV bags, cleaning and sanitizing agents, and various other medical supplies. Trish was seated in a chair with her head and arms laid out on a table. There was what looked to be a used syringe next to her. On a cart next to the table were 2 additional syringes, some cotton balls, and latex gloves. I was hoping he wasn't able to change her yet. I took her by the shoulder, but she just stayed in her ragdoll position. It would have been hard to try to pick her up by myself, so I ran back to the other room. "Is she okay?" Katie asked. "She's passed out on the table, and there are a couple more shots ready for her," I said. "She's not done yet. You should really let me go so I can finish my work," said Rick. "What's in the syringes?" I asked. "You're running out of time," Rick said. "They're expecting me to turn over a couple people to them right now. They don't like it if I'm late. Just let me go, and I'll let those of you that are awake go." "You don't get to make the decisions for us," said Jared. "Like I told you before, you need me if you want to survive," said Rick. I didn't think we were getting anywhere with Rick, and I believed him that we were running out of time. "Katie, can you help me get Trish out of there?" She nodded and started wheeling one of the empty cots towards the door. I propped the door open with a chair, and we worked together to carefully lift Trish onto the cot. I then put the 4 syringes on the cot, thinking they may come in handy. After we guided her back into the other room, Ali came through on the radio. "Dad, come back! Something is happening outside, and I think they're trying to get in. I'm scared." "Stay hidden with Jessica, and I'll be right there." "I love you, Ali," I said. "Let me go, and I can guarantee you that she will be safe," said Rick. "How about we just give you to them?" I said, and picked up one of the syringes. "Seems fair to me," said Jared. Rick tensed up. "You don't know what you're doing with those," he said, lacking the usual confidence in his voice. "Hold him tight," I said. Katie ran over to help Jared hold him steady. He tried squirming, but Jared and Katie easily overpowered him. Wait! I can help you!" Rick shouted. I removed the cap from the syringe and jabbed it in the side of his arm just below his shoulder. He shouted in pain as I made sure all the contents were released into his arm. I then did the same thing with the next syringe in his other arm. "Let's go back up and see what's going on," I said. "Jared, can you handle Rick and Katie, and I'll bring Trish? We can come back for the others." "Sounds good," said Jared, and he started pulling Rick towards the hallway with the elevator. Katie and I wheeled Trish through the doors and joined Jared in the elevator. Rick had his head down and was sobbing quietly. We went up the back through the hallway to the dining room. The man was still sitting calmly in the chair, so we left him for now. Mrs. Barnes and Ali ran over to us when we made it back in the training room. I hugged Ali and held her tight for a moment. Then we filled them in on what we found in the basement and about giving the shots to Rick. "Dad," said Ali, "they're trying to get in here. What should we do?" "There are a lot of them out there," said Mrs. Barnes. "They were standing outside the garage and banging on the garage door." "They don't like to wait," said Rick as he dropped to the ground. "You're all dead. You should have listened to me. He spoke slowly, and I could tell the injections were starting to kick in. Let's give them what they want, said Jared. Anyone want to help me drag him into the garage? As expected, there were no objections to handing Rick over to them. I'll help you, I said. We can try to figure out a safe way to give him over. Ali grabbed my hand and squeezed it. Ali, you come with me. If this works, we'll get the others out of the basement, said Mrs. Barnes. And if it doesn't, we'll figure something else out, Katie finished for her. Jared pulled Rick up to a standing position. I grabbed his arm so he wouldn't fall back down. No sleeping yet, said Jared. Rick's eyes kept closing, but he was still able to put one foot in front of the other as we led him out to the room and towards the garage. Dad, Ali said, is Trish going to be okay? I think so, sweetie. We stopped Rick before he could give her the rest of the shots. Okay, good, she said. We could hear the changed people banging on the garage door when we got close to it. There had to be a lot of them based on how loud it was. When we walked through the doorway, I had to shield my eyes from the bright headlights shining in through the glass windows. The banging suddenly stopped when they saw us, leaving us in an unpleasant silence as we could see them staring in through the windows. Any ideas on what to do now? Jared asked. Rick's eyes were completely shut, and I caught him just before he tumbled to the ground. He was out. I helped his limp body carefully to the ground and left him lying there. Maybe we can open the garage door and run back behind that door into the hallway, I said, unable to think of any other way to safely hand him over. Sounds like a plan, said Jared. I'll push the button and then run over to you two. Ali and I ran behind the door, and I held it open as Jared dragged Rick to the middle of the garage floor. He then pushed the button, resulting in a loud chain drive lifting the garage door. As soon as he made it behind the door, we pushed it shut and locked it. It was a solid metal door with a small window, so, although it wasn't the best view, we were still able to see inside. Dad, I'm scared, said Ali. It will be okay, I said. They'll take Rick, and when they leave, we will gather the others and find a new place to stay. I had really hoped that would be what would happen. Did Mr. Rick have the same stuff he put in the food for us? Ali asked. I think so. I hope so, I said, a little less confident in the quick plan we came up with. Through the window, I saw Rick unmoving in the centre of the garage. I counted 15 people that walked over to Rick. They all looked down at him and stayed still for a while, until one of them crouched down next to him. He leaned over him, and it was hard to tell what he was doing. Is he biting him? asked Jared. I can't tell, I said, as I kept watching to see what would happen next. The man got back up and stood next to the others. They again stared down at him for a while. Nothing seemed to be happening. Why is it taking so long for him to change? I said. It was pretty instant when we saw it happen before. It must be the sedative, said Jared. More time ticked by, and I was getting more and more nervous. And then suddenly, they all turned their heads towards us in unison. The man that had crouched down by Rick started walking towards the door. This can't be good, said Jared. When the man was a few feet away from the door, Rick started moving. He slowly sat up, but then didn't move anymore. The man stopped and turned around to face Rick. The others trained their gaze on him as well. I was pretty sure that this wasn't the way it usually happened when Rick gave them someone. Although they didn't show it with facial expressions, the changed people seemed confused. Finally, though, one of them reached down and pulled Rick up to a standing position. Then they pushed and pulled him out of the garage and outside. Unfortunately, the man stayed and turned back around to face us. He moved closer to the door and put his face up to the window. Joe, Katie called through the walkie-talkie. Is everything going okay? I think so, I said. They just took him outside, and there's only one that stayed inside the garage. Come back as soon as you can. It looks like Trish is waking up, she said.